And corporate America is shedding its diversity promises faster than you can say DEI. From Wall Street boardrooms to Silicon Valley campuses, companies are scrambling to align with President Donald Trump's anti-diversity crusade. The policies, which were once celebrated as steps toward inclusion, are vanishing overnight, replaced by silence or compliance. Goldman Sachs, Deloitte, Google, Meta, Amazon, the list keeps growing and the message is clear. Diversity is out. But as companies bow to political pressure, what does this mean for the future of workplace equality? Our next story has more.
Donald Trump isn't in the boardroom, but you would be forgiven for thinking otherwise. From Wall Street to Silicon Valley, corporate giants are scrambling to rewrite policies and sidestep diversity efforts, all in a bid to stay in the president's good graces. First up, Goldman Sachs and Deloitte. These aren't small players. These are the titans of banking and consulting, and even they are retreating under the weight of Trump's anti-DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion offensive. Remember Goldman's bold 2020 pledge? The bank swore it wouldn't take a company public unless it had at least one diverse board member. But 5 years later, in 2025, this is history. Blaming a court decision that struck down Nasdaq's diversity disclosure rules, Goldman has quietly pulled the plug.
As a result of legal developments related to board diversity requirements, we ended our formal board diversity policy. We continue to believe that successful boards benefit from diverse backgrounds and perspectives, and we will encourage them to take this approach.
On the other hand, Deloitte followed with a stealthier yet equally dramatic shift. The consultancy giant ordered at least 15,000 staff working on government contracts to scrub pronouns from their email signatures by February 7.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
But here's where it gets darker. Trump's executive orders now demand that federal employees report colleagues who continue DEI efforts in disguise, and failure to do so expect adverse consequences. While private companies aren't legally bound by these orders, Trump has nudged the U.S. Attorney General to find ways to make them stick in the private sector too.
We want the most competent people. We don't care what race they are. We want the most competent people, especially in those positions. And you're talking about extremely complex things. And if they don't have a great brain, a great power of the brain, they're not going to be very good at what they do, and bad things will happen.
And the ripple effect is growing. ISS, the influential shareholder advisory firm, announced it will no longer recommend voting against U.S. companies that lack gender or ethnic diversity on their boards, meaning we don't want to upset the Trump camp.
In light of these developments, ISS will indefinitely halt consideration of certain diversity factors in making vote recommendations, and will no longer consider the gender and racial and/or ethnic diversity of a company's board when making vote recommendations with respect to the election or re-election of directors at U.S. companies.
But this isn't just a Wall Street story. The tech world, those same companies that once championed inclusion, is quietly falling in line. Google, for instance, has been busy. After donating $1 million to Trump's 2025 inauguration, the tech giant began dismantling its diversity hiring goals. But the changes didn't stop at HR. Google Maps recently renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America for US users, following one of Trump's first executive orders.
For the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America. Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
While Mexican users still see Gulf of Mexico, the rest of the world gets a compromise label. Gulf of Mexico, and in brackets, Gulf of America. Google Calendar has also taken a hit. Users noticed that cultural observances like Pride Month, Black History Month, and Indigenous Peoples Month vanished from the default settings. Google claims this was a scalability issue, saying it now differs to public holiday databases like timeanddate.com.
Some years ago, the calendar team started manually adding a broader set of cultural moments in a wide number of countries around the world. We got feedback that some other events and countries were missing, and maintaining hundreds of moments manually and consistently globally wasn't scalable or sustainable. So in mid-2024, we returned to showing only public holidays and national observances from timeanddate.com globally.
But users aren't buying it. Dear Google, stop sucking up to Trump, one person wrote on a support forum, and that sentiment is spreading. Meanwhile, Meta and Amazon are pulling back too. Meta scrapped DEI programs tied to hiring, training, and supplier selection. And Amazon, in a memo to employees, announced it was winding down outdated representation and inclusion programs. Though it's a coordinated retreat, the message is loud and clear. DEI is out. Corporate compliance with Trump's anti-diversity agenda is in. But as more companies bow to the pressure, one can't help but wonder what's next, and how far will they go? The answer might be just around the corner, but one thing is for sure, this isn't the end. It's just the beginning.
We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you. Touted as the minimum defense from that video. India's neighbors were the first to send the special edition of Vantage live from the White House throughout the week. Yes, Hindu Mandir in we're on our way to Tel Aviv. Measure, but it's also the perfect way to drive.
I don't think that
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sherin Tagwe. Welcome to
60% of the world's
office. Prime Minister Modi did the iron.
we were actually
How are you doing? How do you like? It's been 1 year since that meeting. Iron bars separate you from the outside. Out the vote efforts. Trump had, it says, and at $4.3 trillion. 4.3 300 billion by 2030. That's what we need to tackle climate change.